Hello pandas and welcome back to the shop. Today I have a problem. Way too much wire piled up that needs stripping. I know. How do I find the strength to go on? But it's getting colder outside, and the colder it is, the harder it is to strip the stuff. So if I want to clear this space, I need to do it now before everything is frozen. So today's challenge, how much can we make in one day stripping wire? Am I going to get through all of it? I don't know. But we've got our trusty stripmeister set up in a vise, got a drill, and plenty of bins. So we should be able to get through, well, I don't know. We're going to find out. That's the question. And hopefully by the end of this, we'll have a whole bunch of bare bright copper and then turn it into cash. That would be nice, wouldn't it? So, as with many things, preparation is key. So I'm going to start by sorting through it and separating it by type. Having it separated this way should save us a bunch of time in the next step, not only because we won't have to keep adjusting the depth of the stripper, but it also gives us a chance to separate the number 1 and the number 2. There, that'll be a lot easier to get through. Just as a reminder, this is number 1. It's got the solid core, and this is number 2. It's stranded on the inside, so the individual pieces of copper won't yield as high a recovery when they're refined. This blue one is interesting. It actually has a layer of paper insulation, so we might skip that one just because our yield will be lower. Now, this grounding cable, on the other hand, is beautiful. Our yield will be really high, so we're not going to skip any of that. This bin is still pretty mixed. There's all of our Lumex or Romex of different sizes, and here is the older style paper and fabric insulated. We'll just bring this in the way it is because it's troublesome to strip. Now the Lumex, on the other hand, is one of the easiest wires to strip because you don't need any special tools, just a sharp knife of some kind. And you can split and peel off the outer layer of insulation really easily. Now we've got a nice long piece of number 1 bare bright copper wire. And a couple strands of insulated number 1. As I'll explain at the end, I'm on the fence as to whether this part is really worth doing or not. The yellow and brown Lumex certainly are because they've got much thicker gauge wire inside, but the white ones, I could take them or leave them. So here's the bin of stuff that felt particularly thin. I didn't check the numbers on all of them. These ones felt particularly thick. I'm saying 10 gauge mostly in there. These ones, medium, but probably 14 gauge. And still mixed. Didn't go through that bin yet. And there's all of our round wire, which we'll get to last. Alright, am I in focus? I don't know. So, that took longer than I would have liked. Quite a bit of insulation removed already. That's just a little guy. I put away some of the tiny pieces. It just didn't seem like fiddling. But we have an alright bin of bare, clean number 1 copper already. So, now to move on to the fun part. The stripmeister. This little cutie is fantastic. I already did a review video. There's plenty of products out there, but this is the one for me. I wouldn't mind having a proper full-on motorized one for having large piles like this, but I don't know how much time it would really save. I think those are more designed for when you have more heavy gauge wire. This probably isn't healthy for my drill, but that's okay. It's what I got it for. And I'm definitely going to have to clean this and lube it after today. Now, the reason I took the time to separate all of these wires into hopefully fairly similar sizes is because the most time-consuming thing is adjusting every time you switch out a different type of wire. But theoretically, if I can just adjust it once and fly through a whole bin, Well, that would be way better. It also depends on how good I was at separating different types. But it looks like we're off to the races. I am really curious about this one, though. It only has to work for a few seconds. Hey! Drill doesn't even smell like it's burning. Haha. Well, that was an absolute beauty. Alright, completed all the bins. Decided not to do a time lapse on all of it because after a little while it feels very much the same. Got a nice big bin full of bare, bright #1 copper wire, and I separated the smallest both in gauge and in length just to sell as #1. That'll give us a baseline of what we would have made if we hadn't bothered with any of this, and also all of the paper wrapped housing wire because it's just kind of a pain in the butt to do. And I kept a separate bin of what'll go in as #2, so the stuff that's stranded, just because I wanted to do that all at once, and you gotta be careful not to. If you pinch it too hard in the machine, then you end up with splinters of copper everywhere. Now all that's left is the big pile of thicker round wire. So some of that is the Romex housing wire, but round rather than flat, so it takes a little more effort. Got to go through this thing, and some of it is the thick, solid #1 stranded. We're gonna do that now. Well, that was fun. Now let's move on to these big ones. So we'll have to adjust here. This is the largest, well, pretty close to the largest size that this little wire stripper can handle. I'm not the kind of smart that just knows what kind of gauge these things are, but I'm definitely getting more familiar. These ones are a bit strange because they're kind of wobbly, so sometimes it doesn't pierce all the way through. We have to decide whether we want to go really deep and end up scouring right into the wire itself, or try and be gentle with it and end up having to rip it. I went with the ripping. So these ones, which are actually from dryers and ovens, are stranded on the inside, so they're going in the #2 bin. This one actually has a grounding wire, which will be #1. Or at least it would be if it wasn't quite so corroded. But that's a very small percentage of what we stripped today, so that will probably get away with. That's some real good thick stuff here. And there we have it. This basically represents 8 hours of work with that stripper, and I'm sure a few of you could have gotten it done in 2, or my tools were all wrong, or I should have sharpened this. But this is intended to represent an average person's ability, or perhaps more valuable to me, what I'm able to do in one day. So there's 2 bags full of installation that we'll have to weigh afterwards to find out just what we would have made if we hadn't touched it and just sold it the way it is. A bunch of that housing stuff, and a few of these are kind of annoying to do because you gotta untwist them, and I was getting tired and I didn't feel bad leaving a few of them. Hopefully that blue stuff will go in as the same grade as the green stuff, and then the prize, the beauty, the bright #1 copper. Now I did take the densest and nicest looking 10 pounds out of this to bury it in the backyard because I like having a stash, but we'll add that to the math. And then the tiny bits of #1, and I did go through and do the #2. You'll see the corroded stuff is in there as well. Might be able to argue to get it into the #1 pile, but probably not. So let's see what it makes today. Alright, we're back, and at time of recording, Bright and Shiny is at $4.05 a pound. That's not teabag. But the total amount that we actually made per hour was kind of surprising. So full disclosure, I'm actually re-recording this a few days later because #1, I wasn't happy with how long I took to explain things, and #2, I kind of fudged the math, and I wasn't happy with that either. Reason being, I should have kept the Lumex insulation and weights separate to really understand which one is worth how much. But I still think this is valuable as a representation of how much an individual could expect to make if they just went hard and stripped everything that looked like it made sense to do so in an average mixed bin. The total ticket value isn't important, including the 10 pounds that I stashed away. That came to 56 pounds of Bright and Shiny, which would have been $226.80. I saved all the insulation we stripped off and weighed those, and that came to a total of 29.3 pounds. We're not converting to kilograms because it's not really relevant to the conclusions. Now here's where I messed it up. If I hadn't stripped any of it and we just sold it the way it was, some of it would have been at the Romex price, which is $1.45 a pound, and some of it would have been the insulated #1, which is $2.16 a pound. So I'll have to give a rough estimate. Let's say it was about a third. It might have been a bit more, but about a third of the insulation and the total weight was Lumex, is what we're going to say. So that would be from 87 pounds total material. If we're calling it a third, 29 pounds of that would have gone in at $1.45, and 58 of it would have gone in at $2.16. So our total, without making any effort, would have been 167, or a difference of $67.52, or $8.44 an hour. That seems bad. Not absolutely terrible, mind you, and there's nothing wrong with making that little bit extra if you're going to be watching TV and don't have anything else to do with your hands. But I think, besides being a little surprising to me, it does a great job of illustrating how important it is to know the value of your time and to spend it wisely, especially when scrapping. Not just indiscriminately scrapping everything just because there's copper in it. I still think splitting the Lumex to get the 1 strand of bare bright and the 2 strands of #1 insulated is worth it, but it gets a little tricky from there. See, the white Lumex wire, which is the most common used in houses, they wire up lights and such, that has 2 strands of 14 gauge insulated #1, and the 14 gauge I think is where all the time is going. I feel like I need to do more research to come up with more hard data to be able to express this, but even when giving ourselves every advantage, having the right tools, separating everything by gauge so we don't need to waste time adjusting the stripmeister more often than necessary, the 14 gauge was bringing the average down. So for me, I do not feel like $8.50 an hour is particularly good. You make twice as much boiling plug ends and pulling the brass out of them. So for me, going forward, I'm not going to be stripping anything below 12 gauge, maybe even below 10 gauge. Either way, that's the answer I found to how much can you make stripping copper wire in one day. And if I told you it was $67, would you spend a day doing it? That's your choice to make. Same as it's your choice to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support the channel. And insider tip, you don't actually need to share it anywhere. You can just click copy link, and that counts. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Leave it better than you found it. Keep doing the thing.